Lucas Bennett thought he knew what betrayal looked like, until he found a billionaire CEO sleeping in his bed. When a 32-year-old single father returns home 3 days early, the last thing he expects is to discover his mother's closest friend, Victoria Hale, a woman worth billions, claiming his space like she owns it. What starts as shock becomes something far more dangerous. Because Victoria isn't just staying in his house. She's rewriting every rule he thought he understood about loyalty, desire, and the lines you should never cross. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. The house smelled wrong. Lucas Bennett stood in the doorway of his own home, travel bag still slung over his shoulder, and tried to identify what had changed in the 72 hours since he'd left. It wasn't the faint scent of jasmine drifting through the living room. His mother sometimes burned candles. It wasn't the afternoon light slanting through windows he'd forgotten to cover. He'd left in a hurry, after all. It was something else. Something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The house felt occupied. Lucas set his bag down slowly, listening. Silence pressed against his eardrums, but it was the loaded kind. The silence that exists just before someone speaks. 3 days. He'd only been gone 3 days, visiting his daughter Emma at his ex-wife's place 2 states over. The trip had been shorter than planned. Emma had a school event she'd forgotten about, and Melissa, his ex, had made it clear his presence was complicating things. So he'd come home early. To this. He moved through the living room, eyes scanning for anything out of place. The throw pillows on the couch were arranged differently. His mother was obsessive about symmetry, but these were artfully scattered, like someone had actually been sitting there. A wine glass sat on the coffee table, a faint lip print still visible on the rim. Red wine. His mother only drank white. Then he saw them. By the door, half hidden behind the coat rack, a pair of black Louboutin heels. Sleek, expensive, definitely not his mother's sensible flats. Lucas's heart began to pound. He pulled out his phone and dialed his mother's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Mom, it's me. I'm home. Call me back." He hung up and stared at the shoes again. Part of him wanted to laugh. Maybe his mother had finally started dating, bought herself something nice. But Helen Bennett wasn't the type to leave designer heels lying around. She'd be horrified at the thought of scuffing them. The sound came from upstairs, soft, almost imperceptible, a creak of floorboards in the master bedroom. His bedroom. Lucas's throat went dry. Every rational thought in his head told him to call the police. Someone had broken in. Someone was in his house, in his space, probably going through his things, but his feet were already moving toward the stairs, carrying him up 1 step at a time. The second floor was darker. He'd left the curtains drawn up here, and the late afternoon sun barely penetrated the heavy fabric. His daughter's room, the one she used when she visited, stood open and empty, exactly as he'd left it. His mother's room at the end of the hall was closed, but his door, the door to the master bedroom, was ajar. He approached it the way you'd approach a wild animal, slowly, quietly, ready to bolt. Through the crack, he could see a sliver of his room, the bed, the rumpled sheets, and something else. Movement. Lucas pushed the door open. For a moment, his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. The woman on his bed sat propped against the headboard, legs crossed casually, a book resting in her lap. She wore black silk, a blouse that probably cost more than his mortgage payment, and fitted pants that looked effortlessly elegant. Her dark hair fell in waves over one shoulder. She looked up when he entered, and her expression didn't change. No surprise, no alarm, just a slow, measuring look, as if she'd been expecting him. "Lucas?" she said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, with the faint hint of an accent he couldn't quite place. "You're early." He knew her. Of course he knew her. Everyone knew Victoria Hale. She was 30 years old and worth more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. Her face had been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. She ran a tech empire that had revolutionized renewable energy, and she did it while making it look easy. She was brilliant, ruthless, and according to every profile written about her, absolutely untouchable. She was also his mother's closest friend. "Victoria?" Lucas managed. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. What are you doing here?" She closed the book, something in French he noticed, and set it on the nightstand with deliberate care. "Your mother didn't tell you?" Tell me what? She's away. She offered me the house while she's gone. Victoria's dark eyes held his. I hope that's not a problem. Lucas felt like he'd stepped into an alternate universe. His mother was away? Since when? And why would she offer their house to Victoria Hale, a woman who probably owned properties on 3 continents? He stopped, realization dawning. Mom's trip. The Vermont thing. Vermont, Victoria confirmed. Something about an old friend's birthday. She left 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Before he'd decided to come home early. She said you wouldn't be back until next week, Victoria continued. She uncrossed her legs and stood, and Lucas was suddenly acutely aware of how small his bedroom felt with her in it. She moved with the kind of grace that came from years of commanding rooms full of powerful people. I needed somewhere quiet, away from the city. Helen was kind enough to offer. Right. Lucas tried to gather his scattered thoughts. This was insane. This whole situation was insane. She didn't she didn't call me. She tried. You didn't answer. He checked his phone. 3 missed calls from his mother, all from yesterday. He'd been driving, then dealing with Emma's meltdown about the school event, then sitting through an uncomfortable dinner with Melissa and her new boyfriend. He'd meant to call her back. I should have, he said. Victoria tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that made him want to look away. But he didn't. Something about her gaze held him in place. Well, she said finally, you're here now. I assume you're planning to stay. It's my house. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Of course it is. The silence that followed was excruciating. Lucas didn't know what to do with his hands. He was standing in his own bedroom, having a conversation with a woman who'd been lying on his bed like she owned the place, and every instinct he had was screaming that this was wrong. Not dangerous wrong, just wrong, in a way he couldn't define. I can go to a hotel, Victoria said, breaking the silence. If my being here makes you uncomfortable. No. The word came out too quickly. He cleared his throat. No, it's fine. You're my mom's guest. I'm not going to kick you out. How generous. There was something in her tone, amusement, maybe, or challenge, that made heat crawl up the back of his neck. He gestured vaguely toward the door. I'll take the guest room. Lucas? She said his name like she was tasting it. This is your house? Your room. I'm perfectly comfortable on the couch. You're not sleeping on the couch. Then we have a problem. She crossed her arms, and the movement made the silk of her blouse catch the light. Because I'm not taking your bed, and you're clearly not going to let me sleep downstairs. They stared at each other. Lucas felt like he was in a negotiation he hadn't agreed to, playing a game whose rules he didn't understand. This was Victoria Hale. She'd probably brokered billion-dollar deals before breakfast. She wasn't going to back down just because he felt awkward. Guest room has a decent bed, he said finally. I'll take that. You stay here. Victoria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. If you're sure. I'm sure. All right. She moved past him toward the door, and for a brief second he caught her scent, something expensive and complex, vanilla layered with something darker, earthier. Thank you, Lucas. She paused in the doorway, looking back at him over her shoulder. I promise I'll stay out of your way. Then she was gone, leaving him standing alone in his bedroom, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. Lucas spent the next hour trying to convince himself that everything was fine. He unpacked his bag in the guest room, a smaller space that his mother usually reserved for overflow storage and the occasional visiting relative. The bed was comfortable enough. The window looked out over the backyard. It was fine. Everything was fine. Except it wasn't. He could hear Victoria moving around downstairs. The soft pad of footsteps. The clink of glass. Water running in the kitchen. Ordinary sounds that somehow felt intrusive because they weren't his mother's sounds, weren't his daughter's sounds. They were the sounds of a stranger in his space. No, not a stranger. That was the problem. Victoria wasn't a stranger. She'd been in his life, peripherally, for almost 15 years. His mother had met her at some charity function when Victoria was just starting out, barely 20, already making waves in the business world. They'd bonded over something, Lucas had never quite understood what, and maintained a friendship that seemed unlikely on paper. Helen Bennett, a retired schoolteacher from a small town. Victoria Hale, a force of nature who'd built an empire from nothing. But they'd stayed close. Victoria sent Christmas cards. She'd shown up at his wedding, sitting quietly in the back row. When Emma was born, she'd sent a gift, a ridiculously expensive stroller that Melissa had insisted they return because we can't accept something like that. He'd met Victoria maybe a dozen times over the years. Brief encounters, polite conversation at holidays. Once, a longer talk at his mother's birthday party, where Victoria had asked him about his work with genuine interest, and he'd found himself rambling about architectural design for 20 minutes while she listened without interrupting. She'd seemed normal in those moments, human. Not the CEO who'd been profiled in every major business magazine, just a woman who cared about his mother and was polite to her son. But he'd never been alone with her. Not like this. Lucas changed into jeans and a t-shirt, ran his hands through his hair, and told himself to stop being weird. He was 32 years old. He'd been married, had a child, survived a divorce. He could handle sharing a house with his mother's friend for a few days. He headed downstairs. Victoria was in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a cutting board in front of her. She'd changed too. The elegant blouse and pants replaced by a simple gray sweater and dark jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked younger this way, more approachable. She glanced up when he entered. "I hope you don't mind. I was going to make dinner." Lucas stared at the ingredients spread across the counter. Fresh vegetables, herbs, a bottle of olive oil. "You cook? Is that so surprising?" "Honestly, yeah." She laughed, a real laugh, not the polished sound he'd heard in interviews. "Most people assume I survive on takeout and protein shakes. I actually find cooking relaxing." "What are you making?" "Pasta primavera. Unless you have other plans?" He didn't. He'd been planning to order pizza and eat it in front of the TV, the way he did most nights when Emma wasn't around. "Pasta's good," he said. "Excellent." She handed him a knife. "You can help." They worked in silence at first, falling into an easy rhythm. Victoria chopped vegetables with the precision of someone who knew their way around a kitchen. Lucas handled the garlic and herbs, crushing cloves and stripping basil leaves from their stems. The silence should have been awkward. Instead, it felt almost comfortable. "Your mother talks about you a lot," Victoria said after a while. Lucas looked up. "Does she?" "Constantly. She's very proud." "Proud of what?" "I'm a divorced single father who barely sees his kid." "You're an architect who designs sustainable housing for low-income communities." Victoria's tone was matter-of-fact. "You're raising a daughter who, by all accounts, is smart and kind. And you take care of your mother even though she'd never admit she needs taking care of." He felt heat rise in his face. "Mom talks too much." "She loves you. That's what mothers do." Victoria paused, knife hovering over a red pepper. "Mine would have, I think, if she'd lived long enough." Lucas knew the story. Everyone did. Victoria's mother had died when she was 8. Her father, unable to cope, had essentially abandoned her to boarding schools and nannies. She'd built her entire empire alone, without family support, without a safety net. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." She resumed chopping. "Besides, Helen's been more of a mother to me than my own ever had the chance to be. I'm lucky to have her." The words hit Lucas harder than they should have. He'd always known his mother cared about Victoria, but hearing it put that way, hearing the genuine affection in Victoria's voice, made him see their friendship differently. "She's lucky to have you too," he said. Victoria smiled, and it transformed her face. For a moment, she wasn't the untouchable CEO. She was just a woman who loved his mother, standing in his kitchen, making dinner. "Thank you," she said softly. They finished preparing the meal and sat down at the small dining table by the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Victoria poured wine, the same red he'd noticed earlier, and they ate. The pasta was perfect. The wine was better. And the conversation flowed easier than Lucas expected. They talked about Emma, about the struggles of co-parenting with an ex who'd rather he didn't exist. Victoria listened without judgment, offering observations that were surprisingly insightful for someone who'd never had children. They talked about his work, about the housing project he was designing for a nonprofit downtown. Victoria asked questions that showed she actually understood the technical challenges he was facing. She even made a few suggestions that were good, really good. You should patent that design, she said, refilling his wine glass. The modular system you described. There's commercial potential there. Lucas laughed. I'm not trying to make money off housing for people who can barely afford rent. I'm not suggesting you exploit anyone. I'm suggesting you protect your work so someone else doesn't steal it and do exactly that. He paused, glass halfway to his lips. She was right. Of course she was right. She'd built a career on seeing opportunities other people missed. I'll think about it, he said. Do more than think. Victoria leaned back in her chair, eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. You're talented, Lucas. Don't waste that out of some misplaced sense of noble suffering. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're punishing yourself for a marriage that failed. I think you're trying to prove something to your ex, to your mother, maybe to yourself. And I think you're smart enough to know better. The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like someone had reached into his chest and touched something he'd been trying to ignore. You don't pull punches, do you? He said. Would you prefer I lie? No. He met her gaze. No, I wouldn't. Something passed between them in that moment. A recognition, maybe, or an understanding. They were both people who'd built walls, both people who'd learned to be careful, both people who were tired of pretending. Thank you, Lucas said, for being honest. Thank you for not throwing me out when you found me in your bed. He choked on his wine. Victoria's expression remained perfectly neutral, but there was a gleam in her eyes that suggested she knew exactly what she'd said. I wasn't going to. He stopped, seeing the corner of her mouth twitch. You're messing with me. Maybe a little. They both laughed, and the sound filled the quiet house with something warm. What? After dinner, they moved to the living room. Lucas built a fire in the fireplace while Victoria curled up on the couch with her book. He tried to focus on emails, responding to work messages and checking in with Emma via text, but he kept finding his attention drifting to the woman across the room. She read the way she did everything else, with complete focus. Her fingers turned pages slowly. Sometimes she'd pause, lips moving silently as if tasting the words. Once she smiled at something, a private expression that made Lucas wonder what she was reading. It's Hugo, she said without looking up. Lucas blinked. What? You've been staring at my book for the last 5 minutes. It's Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, the original French. You speak French, among other languages. She glanced at him over the top of the page. Is there something you wanted to ask me? No, He searched for words. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone colder, I guess, more distant. Victoria set the book aside. Most people do. It's easier to run a company when people think you're made of ice. Are you made of ice? Sometimes. Her expression turned thoughtful. When I need to be, but not here, not with Helen, and not... She trailed off. Not what? Not with people I trust. The weight of those words settled over them. Lucas realized what she was saying, that she trusted him. Or was choosing to anyway. It felt like a gift he hadn't earned. I won't tell anyone you're human, he said lightly. I'd appreciate that. She picked up her wine glass. My shareholders would be devastated. They fell into silence again, but it was different now. Comfortable. The kind of silence that exists between people who don't need to fill every moment with noise. Lucas found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months, maybe years. There was something about Victoria's presence that was settling. She didn't ask him to be anyone other than who he was. Didn't expect performance or perfection. She just existed in the same space, reading her book, occasionally sipping wine, and that was enough. Around 11, she stood and stretched. I should sleep. Early morning tomorrow. Work? Always work. She smiled. Thank you for tonight, Lucas, for letting me stay, for dinner. You made dinner. For the company, then. She moved toward the stairs, then paused with her hand on the banister. Lucas? Yeah? I'm glad you came home early. Before he could respond, she was gone, climbing the stairs to his bedroom, leaving him alone with the dying fire and the echo of her words. Lucas couldn't sleep. He lay in the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around him. Pipes creaking, wind rattling the windows. Normal sounds that felt amplified in the darkness. He kept replaying the evening in his mind, the easy conversation. The moment when Victoria had looked at him across the dinner table and he'd felt something shift, the way she'd said his name. This was insane. He was being insane. Victoria was his mother's friend. She was a decade younger than him, infinitely more successful, and so far out of his league, it was laughable. The fact that they'd had a pleasant dinner together didn't mean anything. Except there had been moments, small moments. The brush of her hand when she'd passed him the wine bottle. The way she'd leaned in when he was talking, like his words actually mattered. The look she'd given him before going upstairs, like she was memorizing his face. Or maybe he was imagining all of it, projecting loneliness onto a situation that was completely innocent. Lucas rolled over, punching his pillow into a more comfortable shape. He needed to sleep. Tomorrow he'd wake up and everything would go back to normal. Victoria would do whatever it was she did, and he'd work on his housing project, and they'd maintain a polite distance for the next few days until his mother came home. Everything would be fine. He was almost asleep when he heard it. Footsteps, soft, padding down the hallway. Lucas's eyes snapped open. The footsteps paused outside his door. He held his breath, listening. A soft knock. "Lucas?" Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. "Are you awake?" He sat up, heart pounding. "Yeah, what's wrong?" The door opened a crack. Victoria stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. She wore silk pajamas, expensive, elegant, completely appropriate. But somehow the sight of her standing there in the middle of the night made his mouth go dry. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know it's late. I couldn't sleep." "Is everything okay?" "Yes. No, I don't know." She ran a hand through her loose hair. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She entered, closing the door behind her, and perched on the edge of the bed. In the darkness, he could just make out her silhouette, the curve of her shoulders, the way her hands twisted together in her lap. "I need to apologize," she said quietly. "For what?" "For earlier, for being here at all. Your mother offered, and I thought it would be simple. A quiet place to work, a chance to step away from everything. I didn't think about how awkward this would be for you." Lucas sat up straighter. "It's not awkward, isn't it?" She turned to look at him, and even in the low light, he could see the vulnerability in her expression. "You came home to find a stranger in your bed. That's the definition of awkward." "You're not a stranger, Victoria." "Aren't I?" Her voice was soft. "We've met, what, a dozen times? We've never had a real conversation until tonight. I know about you through Helen's stories, but I don't really know you. And you don't know me." "I'd like to," Lucas said. The words were out before he could stop them. Victoria went still. "What?" "Know you. I'd like to know you." He felt like he was standing on the edge of something, about to step off into open air. "If you want." The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. "I'd like that too," Victoria said finally. "More than you know." She stood, and for a moment Lucas thought she was leaving, but instead she moved to the window, looking out at the darkened backyard. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Something I've never told anyone?" "Of course." "I'm lonely." The words were simple, but they carried weight. "I'm surrounded by people every day, employees, board members, investors. I go to parties and conferences and dinners. I'm never alone, but I'm so fucking lonely, I sometimes forget what it feels like to be anything else." Lucas got out of bed and joined her at the window. They stood side by side, shoulders almost touching. "Your mother is the only person in my life who sees me," Victoria continued. "Not Victoria Hale, CEO. Not the billionaire or the businesswoman or the success story, just me. Do you know how rare that is?" "I think I do," Lucas said quietly. She turned to face him. "Your ex-wife didn't see you, did she?" "No, she saw who she wanted me to be. When I couldn't be that person, she left." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We were wrong for each other from the start. I just didn't want to admit it." "Why not?" "Because admitting it meant I'd failed. And I'd already failed at so many other things. I couldn't fail at marriage, too. Victoria reached out and touched his arm. A light touch, barely there, but it sent electricity up his spine. You didn't fail, Lucas. You tried. There's a difference. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. In the moonlight filtering through the window, she was breathtaking. Not in the polished, untouchable way she looked in magazines. In a real way. Human. Vulnerable. Victoria, he said, and her name felt different on his tongue. Heavier. More important. I should go, she whispered. But she didn't move. Neither did he. They stood there, inches apart, caught in a moment that felt suspended outside of time. Lucas could hear his own heartbeat, could see the pulse fluttering in Victoria's throat, could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. He should step back. He should say goodnight. He should do any of the dozen sensible things that would end this moment safely. Instead, he stayed exactly where he was. Victoria, he said again, and this time it sounded like a question. She answered by closing the distance between them, rising on her toes, bringing her face level with his. Tell me to leave, she breathed. I can't. Why not? Because I don't want you to. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something, permission, maybe, or confirmation that he felt what she felt. Whatever she saw, there must have been enough, because she leaned in, slowly, giving him every chance to pull away. He didn't. Their lips met softly, tentatively, like a question neither of them knew how to ask out loud. Victoria's hand slid from his arm to his shoulder, fingers curling into the fabric of his t-shirt. Lucas brought his hand up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. The kiss deepened. What had started gentle became something more urgent, more desperate. Victoria made a small sound in the back of her throat, and Lucas felt it reverberate through his entire body. This was wrong. This was his mother's friend. This was a woman he barely knew, who'd be gone in a few days, who lived in a completely different world. This was complicated in ways he couldn't begin to untangle. But God, it felt right. Victoria broke away first, breathing hard. Her forehead rested against his, and he could feel her trembling, or maybe that was him. We can't, she whispered. I know. I know. Your mother would, I know. Lucas pulled back just enough to look at her. I know all of that. I know every reason this is a bad idea, but I don't care. Victoria closed her eyes. You should care. So should you. But you're still here. She opened her eyes again, and what he saw there made his breath catch. Want. Fear. Loneliness. Hope. All tangled together in an expression he understood because he felt it too. What are we doing? She asked. I don't know. Where does this go? I don't know that either. She laughed, a shaky sound. We're both terrible at this. Spectacularly terrible, Lucas agreed. They stood there, caught between what they should do and what they wanted to do. The smart choice was obvious. Victoria would leave. They'd pretend this never happened. In a few days, she'd go back to her life and he'd go back to his, and this moment would become nothing more than a story they never told. But Lucas was tired of making smart choices, tired of doing what was expected, tired of pretending he didn't feel things just to make life simpler. Stay, he said. Victoria's eyes widened. Lucas, I don't mean... He fumbled for words. Just stay. Here. With me. We don't have to do anything. I just don't want you to leave. For a long moment, she didn't respond. Then slowly, she nodded. They climbed back into the bed, awkward at first, trying to find positions that felt natural. Lucas lay on his back, and Victoria settled beside him, her head on his shoulder, her hand resting lightly on his chest. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. They didn't speak, didn't kiss again. Just lay there in the darkness, two lonely people finding comfort in the simple fact of not being alone. Lucas felt Victoria's breathing slow, felt her body relax against his. Sometime before dawn, they both fell asleep, tangled together in a way that made no sense and all the sense in the world. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to the choices being made below. Inside, the house held its breath, waiting to see what morning would bring. Morning came too quickly and not quickly enough. Lucas woke to sunlight streaming through the guest room window and the warm weight of Victoria still pressed against his side. Her breathing was soft and even, her face peaceful in sleep. One of her hands had curled into his shirt during the night, holding on like she was afraid he'd disappear. He didn't move. Couldn't move. Because moving would break whatever spell had settled over them in the darkness, and he wasn't ready for that yet. In the harsh light of day, he should have been panicking, should have been cataloging all the ways this was a mistake. Instead, he felt calm, calmer than he'd felt in years. Victoria stirred, her eyelashes fluttering. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the brightness, and for a moment looked confused about where she was. Then her gaze found his face and something softened in her expression. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi." They stared at each other, neither quite sure what to say. The intimacy of waking up together felt both completely natural and absolutely terrifying. "I should go," Victoria said, but she didn't move. "Probably. People will wonder where I am." "Will they?" She smiled slightly. "No, I told my assistant I was going dark for a week. No calls, no meetings, complete radio silence." "Sounds nice." "It's terrifying, actually. I've never done it before." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. "I don't know how to not work." Then don't work. Just be here." "Is that what you want?" Lucas reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture felt impossibly intimate, more intimate somehow than the kiss they'd shared. "I want you to do whatever makes you happy." "What if I don't know what that is anymore?" "Then we'll figure it out together." Victoria closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. When she opened them again, they were bright with something that looked like hope and fear tangled together. "You don't know me, Lucas." "Not really." "So let me know you." "What if you don't like what you find?" "What if I do?" She laughed, a soft exhale of breath. "You're persistent. When I want something. And you want this? Want me?" The question hung between them, weighted with all the implications neither of them was ready to voice. Lucas could have deflected, could have made a joke or changed the subject. Instead, he told the truth. "Yes." Victoria leaned down and kissed him, soft and slow. It wasn't the desperate kiss of last night. This was something else, a choice made in daylight, a line consciously crossed. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed. "I should shower, get dressed." "Okay." "Will you make coffee?" "That I can do." She climbed out of bed and Lucas watched her go, memorizing the way she moved, the way the morning light caught in her hair. At the door she paused and looked back. "Lucas? Thank you for last night, for not making me feel crazy." "You're not crazy. We'll see." Then she was gone, and Lucas was left alone with the rumpled sheets and the fading scent of vanilla. He got up and headed downstairs, his mind racing. What were they doing? Where was this going? Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, but there was another part, quieter but stronger, that didn't care about rationality. That part just wanted her to stay. In the kitchen, he started the coffee maker and stared out the window at the backyard. The grass needed mowing. The fence needed repairs. Normal, mundane problems that felt absurdly simple compared to what was happening inside the house. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Morning, Daddy. Can we video call later? I want to show you something." Lucas smiled and typed back. "Of course, Princess." "What time?" "After school? 4? Perfect. Love you." "Love you too." He set the phone down and poured 2 cups of coffee. Black for him. He realized he had no idea how Victoria took hers. "Cream and sugar," she said from the doorway, as if reading his mind. Lucas turned. She'd showered and changed into jeans and a soft white sweater that made her look younger, more approachable. Her hair was still damp, falling in dark waves around her face. "Coming right up." He fixed her coffee and they sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where they'd had dinner the night before. Sunlight poured through the window, warm and golden. Outside, birds were singing. It felt domestic, normal, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. "What's your plan for today?" Victoria asked, wrapping her hands around the mug. "I need to review some blueprints for the housing project. Make a few calls, nothing exciting." He paused. "What about you?" "Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't had a day without a plan in... I can't remember how long." So make one up. What would you do if you could do anything? Victoria considered this, brow furrowed. I'd read, take a walk, maybe cook something complicated just for the challenge of it. Sounds perfect. Sounds boring. Sounds human. She smiled at that. I'm not very good at being human. You're doing fine so far. They fell into comfortable silence, sipping coffee and watching the morning unfold. Lucas kept stealing glances at her, still half convinced he'd dreamed the whole thing. But she was real, solid. Here. I need to go to the grocery store, he said eventually. We're running low on everything. Want to come? Victoria's eyes widened slightly. To the grocery store? Yeah, you know, the place where they sell food. I know what a grocery store is. I haven't been to one in years. Lucas stared at her. You're joking. I have people who do that. It's more efficient. It's also sad. Is it? She looked genuinely curious, like this was a concept she'd never considered. Come with me. I'll show you what you're missing. All right, Victoria said, and the small smile that played at her lips suggested she knew he was teasing her. But if we get mobbed by paparazzi, I'm blaming you. Deal. 20 minutes later, they were walking through the automatic doors of the local supermarket. Victoria had pulled her hair back and put on sunglasses, but Lucas doubted anyone would recognize her here. This was a small-town grocery store, not the kind of place that attracted billionaire CEOs. He grabbed a cart and started down the produce aisle. Victoria followed, looking around like she'd stepped into a museum. It's so bright, she said. That's the fluorescent lights. Very romantic. And loud. Grocery stores are loud. It's part of the charm. Victoria picked up an apple, turning it over in her hands. How do you know which ones are good? You look for firm ones without bruises. Here. Lucas selected a few and put them in a bag. See? Easy. Nothing about this feels easy. But she was smiling, really smiling, and Lucas realized with a jolt that this might be the most normal thing Victoria had done in years. Something mundane and ordinary and utterly human. They moved through the aisles together, Lucas pointing out items and Victoria asking questions that ranged from practical to absurd. She wanted to know why there were so many types of bread, why milk came in different percentages, whether anyone actually bought the decorative gourds by the entrance. Those are for Thanksgiving, Lucas explained. Why? I honestly have no idea. Tradition? Traditions are strange. Says the woman who reads Victor Hugo in the original French. Victoria laughed and bumped her shoulder against his. The casual touch sent warmth spreading through his chest. In the cereal aisle, they ran into Mrs. Patterson, his elderly neighbor. She took one look at Victoria and her eyes went wide. Lucas, I didn't know you were seeing anyone. Lucas opened his mouth, but Victoria beat him to it. We're old friends, she said smoothly, extending her hand. Victoria, it's lovely to meet you. Mrs. Patterson shook her hand, clearly charmed. Well, aren't you pretty? Lucas, you should bring her to the neighborhood barbecue next week. We'll see, Lucas said, feeling his face heat. You do that, and tell your mother I have her casserole dish. I keep forgetting to return it. She bustled off, and Lucas let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Old friends? He asked. Victoria shrugged. It seemed simpler than explaining the truth. Which is? That I don't know what we are. She met his eyes. Do you? Lucas thought about lying, about deflecting. Instead, he said, no, but I'd like to find out. Something shifted in Victoria's expression, softened. Me too. They finished shopping and loaded the bags into Lucas's car. The drive home was quiet, but it was the good kind of quiet. The kind that exists between people who don't need to fill every silence with words. Back at the house, they put away the groceries together, moving around each other with an ease that felt practiced. Victoria asked where things went, and Lucas directed her, and somehow it felt like the most significant thing they'd done all day. I need to work for a few hours, Lucas said when they were done. The blueprints won't review themselves. And I should read, or pretend to read, while I actually think about how strange this all is. Is it? Strange? Victoria stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. Completely. But I think I like strange. She kissed him then, quick and light, and disappeared upstairs before he could respond. Lucas stood in the kitchen, heart pounding, and wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. The afternoon passed in a blur of work calls and blueprint reviews. Lucas sat up in the dining room, spreading his papers across the table, making notes and adjustments. Through the window, he could see Victoria in the backyard, sitting in one of the old lawn chairs with her book. She looked peaceful, content. So different from the polished, untouchable CEO he'd seen in photographs. This version of Victoria was soft around the edges, human in ways he hadn't expected. His phone rang at 4. Emma's face filled the screen, bright and excited. "Daddy, look!" She held up a drawing, a colorful mess of crayon that might have been a house or a dragon, or both. "I made this in art class." "It's beautiful, Princess. Tell me about it." Emma launched into an elaborate explanation involving princesses and castles and a friendly monster named Gerald. Lucas listened, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. This was his favorite part of being a father, these simple, perfect moments when Emma's whole world fit into a crayon drawing. "Can I come visit this weekend?" Emma asked when she'd finished explaining. Lucas's heart sank. "I don't think so, sweetheart. Your mom said she has plans. But I want to see you." "I know, I want to see you too, but we have to follow the schedule, remember?" Emma's lower lip trembled. "The schedule is stupid." "I know it feels that way sometimes, but we'll have our weekend together soon, and we can video call every day until then, okay?" "Okay," Emma said, but she sounded small and sad, and Lucas wanted to reach through the screen and hug her. They talked for a few more minutes before Melissa appeared in the background, calling Emma for dinner. His daughter blew him a kiss and disconnected, and Lucas was left staring at his own reflection in the blank screen. He set the phone down and rubbed his eyes. This was the hardest part. The distance, the schedule, the feeling that he was missing huge chunks of his daughter's life. "She's beautiful." Lucas looked up. Victoria stood in the doorway, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You heard?" "Some of it. I didn't mean to eavesdrop." She moved into the room, perching on the edge of the table. "She looks like you." "Poor kid." "I'm serious. She has your smile." Lucas felt something crack open in his chest. "I miss her. Every day I miss her." "I know." "How could you possibly know?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I don't. Not really, but I know what it's like to lose something you love. To have it and then not have it and not know how to bridge that gap." "Is that what happened with your company, before you built it back up?" "No, that's what happened with every relationship I've ever tried to have." She looked away. "I'm not good at letting people in, Lucas. I'm good at building walls and calling it strength. Seems like you're letting me in. That's what terrifies me." Lucas stood and moved to stand in front of her. He took her hands in his, threading their fingers together. "You don't have to be terrified," he said quietly. "Don't I? In a few days, I'll go back to my life. You'll go back to yours. This, whatever this is, it has an expiration date." "Does it have to?" Victoria looked up at him, eyes searching his face. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know, but I know I don't want this to end just because it's convenient. Nothing about this is convenient." "No," Lucas agreed. "But maybe that's the point." They stood there, hands clasped, caught between what was logical and what felt right. Lucas could feel Victoria trembling slightly, could see the war playing out behind her eyes. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Neither do I. But I'm willing to try if you are." "Lucas, you don't have to decide now. Just don't decide it's over before it's even started." Victoria closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. Everything else is what makes it complicated." She laughed, a watery sound. "When did you become so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just tired of pretending I don't feel things." Victoria pulled him closer, resting her forehead against his chest. Lucas wrapped his arms around her, holding her like she was something precious and breakable. "Stay for dinner," he said into her hair. "I'm already staying for dinner. I live here, remember?" "No, I mean, stay. Don't run away because this is scary. Just stay." She pulled back enough to look at him. "You're asking a lot." "I know." "What if I can't give you what you want? What if you can?" They stared at each other, the air between them charged with possibility. Then Victoria rose on her toes and kissed him, and Lucas stopped thinking about what-ifs and maybes and just let himself feel. The kiss was different from the others. Slower, deeper, like they were trying to memorize each other through touch alone. Lucas's hand slid into Victoria's hair, and she made a small sound that sent heat pooling in his stomach. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victoria's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were dark. "We should cook dinner," she said, but she didn't move. "We should." "Lucas?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you came home early." He smiled against her temple. "Me too." They made dinner together that evening, moving around the kitchen with an ease that felt practiced. Victoria chopped vegetables while Lucas handled the pasta, and they fell into the kind of comfortable rhythm that usually took months to develop. The conversation flowed easily, touching on everything and nothing. Victoria told him about growing up in boarding schools, about the loneliness of always being the scholarship kid among the wealthy. Lucas shared stories about Emma, about the joy and terror of being a father, about the day she was born, and how he'd held her and known his entire life had changed. "Do you want more children?" Victoria asked, stirring the sauce. Lucas considered the question. "I don't know, maybe, if the circumstances were right." He paused. "What about you?" "I've never thought about it. My life doesn't really have room for children." "But if it did?" Victoria set down the spoon and turned to face him. "I think I'd be terrified. I don't know how to be a mother. My own mother died before she could teach me, and the women who raised me after that were paid to do it. They didn't love me. They just tolerated me." The raw honesty in her voice made Lucas's chest ache. He moved closer, bracketing her against the counter with his arms. "You'd be a good mother," he said softly. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. You're kind, you're patient, you listen. Those are the things that matter. And if I mess up, if I damage them the way I was damaged, everyone messes up. That's what being a parent is. You just have to love them enough that they forgive you for it." Victoria's eyes were bright with tears. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't. I'm just saying what I think is true." She pulled him down and kissed him, and Lucas tasted salt on her lips. When she pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. "The sauce is going to burn," she said. "Let it burn." "Lucas Bennett, are you suggesting we waste food?" "I'm suggesting there are more important things than perfectly cooked pasta." Victoria laughed and pushed him away gently. "Save the romance for after dinner. I'm starving." They ate at the table by the window again, watching the sun set in streaks of orange and pink. The wine was good, the pasta was perfect, and the silence between bites was comfortable, punctuated by small smiles and shared glances. After dinner, they washed dishes together. Lucas washed, Victoria dried, and they worked in companionable quiet. When the last plate was put away, Victoria hung up the dish towel and turned to him. "Want to watch a movie?" she asked. "Sure. What do you want to see?" "I don't know. What do you have?" Lucas led her to the living room, and they scrolled through streaming options, debating the merits of action versus comedy versus drama. They finally settled on an old classic neither of them had seen in years. Lucas sat on the couch, and Victoria curled up beside him, tucking her feet under her. As the movie started, she leaned her head on his shoulder, and Lucas wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. The movie played, but Lucas couldn't tell you what it was about. He was too aware of Victoria pressed against his side, of the way her fingers traced absent patterns on his arm, of the small sounds she made at the emotional moments. Halfway through, she shifted, turning to face him. The movie flickered in the background, forgotten. "Lucas," she said quietly. "Yeah? I need you to understand something." His heart stuttered. "Okay. What we're doing, it can't be simple. My life is complicated. I have responsibilities, expectations, people who depend on me. I can't just walk away from that." "I'm not asking you to." "Aren't you? Because if this continues, if we—" She broke off, struggling for words. "I don't know how to balance what I want with what I have to do." Lucas took her face in his hands, making her look at him. "Then don't balance it. Not yet. Just be here, with me, for as long as you can. We'll figure out the rest later." "What if later never comes? What if this is all we get? Then we make the most of it." Victoria searched his face, looking for something. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she leaned in and kissed him. This kiss was different, hungrier, more urgent, like she was trying to pour everything she couldn't say into the connection between them. Lucas responded in kind, his hand sliding into her hair, pulling her closer. Victoria shifted, straddling his lap, and Lucas groaned against her mouth. Her fingers found the hem of his shirt, sliding underneath to trace the muscles of his abdomen. He shivered at her touch, heat pooling low in his stomach. "Victoria," he breathed. "Tell me to stop," she whispered against his lips. "I can't." "Tell me this is a bad idea." "It probably is." "Then why aren't we stopping?" Lucas pulled back just enough to look at her. Her hair was mussed from his hands. Her lips were swollen. Her eyes were dark with want. "Because I don't want to," he said. "Because this feels right even when it shouldn't. Because I—" He stopped himself before he could say the words that were forming. Words that were too big, too soon, too dangerous. Victoria seemed to understand anyway. She cupped his face in her hands, thumb stroking his cheekbones. "I know," she said softly. "I feel it too." They sat there, tangled together, the movie playing unwatched in the background. Lucas knew they should slow down, should think about consequences, should be rational about this whole impossible situation. Instead, he kissed her again, slower this time, savoring every moment. Victoria melted into him, her body soft and pliant against his. "We should go upstairs," she murmured against his mouth. Lucas's heart pounded. "Are you sure?" "No, but I don't care anymore." He stood carrying her with him, and Victoria wrapped her legs around his waist with a laugh. They made it halfway up the stairs before he had to stop and kiss her again, pressing her against the wall, losing himself in the taste of her. By the time they reached his bedroom, her bedroom, technically, they were both breathing hard. Lucas set her down gently, and for a moment they just looked at each other, the weight of what they were about to do settling over them. "Last chance to change your mind," Lucas said. Victoria reached for the hem of her sweater. "I'm not changing my mind." She pulled the sweater over her head, and Lucas forgot how to breathe. They came together in the center of the room, hands exploring, mapping each other's bodies like territory they were claiming. Victoria's skin was soft and warm under his fingers. She made small sounds that drove him crazy, little gasps and sighs that told him exactly what she liked. They fell onto the bed together, a tangle of limbs and whispered words. Lucas took his time, learning every inch of her, committing every reaction to memory. Victoria was responsive and demanding by turns, guiding his hands, arching into his touch. When they finally came together, it felt inevitable. Like every moment since he'd walked into the house and found her in his bed had been leading to this. Victoria's eyes locked on his, and Lucas saw everything he felt reflected back at him: desire, fear, hope, wonder. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, breathing hard, skin slick with sweat. Lucas pulled Victoria close, and she curled into him like she belonged there. "That was—" she started. "Yeah," Lucas agreed. She laughed, the sound vibrating against his chest. "Very articulate." "Words are overrated." Victoria propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. Her hair fell around them like a curtain, creating a private world just for the two of them. "What are we doing, Lucas?" she asked softly. "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." "Neither do I. That's the problem." "Why is that a problem?" "Because in a few days I have to go back. I have a board meeting on Monday, a conference in Tokyo next week. Commitments I can't break. So come back. After the meetings, after Tokyo, come back here. And then what? We pretend this is sustainable? That we can build something real when our lives are completely incompatible?" Lucas sat up, bringing her with him. "Maybe they're not as incompatible as you think. I live in New York, Lucas. You live here. I travel constantly for work. You have a daughter who needs stability. How does that work?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I don't want to lose this before we've even tried." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand what you're asking. My life, it's not simple. It's not easy. There are expectations, pressures, people who would use you to get to me, paparazzi, gossip. Your ex-wife would have a field day. I don't care about any of that. You say that now. But when it's real, when it's your daughter seeing pictures of you with me in tabloids, When it's your mother having to explain to her friends why her son is dating her best friend, my mother would be happy for us. Would she? Or would she feel betrayed? Like we went behind her back? Lucas pulled Victoria closer, resting his forehead against hers. We'll tell her. When she gets back, we'll explain. And say what? That we fell into bed together the moment she left town? We'll tell her the truth. That something happened between us that neither of us expected. That we're trying to figure it out. She'll be hurt. Maybe. Probably. But she'll understand eventually. She loves you. She loves me. She wants us both to be happy. Victoria closed her eyes. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. We want to be together. Everything else is just noise. I wish I could believe that. Then try. Just for tonight, stop thinking about all the reasons this can't work and just be here with me. Victoria opened her eyes, and Lucas saw the moment she made her decision. The walls came down. The fear receded. All that was left was the woman in his arms, looking at him like he was the only thing that mattered. Okay, she whispered. Just for tonight. Lucas kissed her, slow and deep, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. Victoria responded with equal intensity, her hands sliding into his hair, her body pressing against his. They made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch, every kiss. Lucas memorized the sounds she made, the way her breath hitched when he kissed her neck, the way her nails dug into his shoulders when she came apart in his arms. After they lay in the darkness, wrapped around each other, listening to the house settle around them. Victoria's breathing evened out, and Lucas thought she'd fallen asleep until she spoke. Lucas? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For making me feel human again. For reminding me that there's more to life than spreadsheets and board meetings. Lucas pressed a kiss to her temple. You don't have to thank me for that. I do. Because I'd forgotten. I'd convinced myself that work was enough, that success was the same as happiness, and then you... Her voice cracked. You showed me I was wrong. Victoria, I'm falling for you, she whispered, and it terrifies me. Lucas's heart stopped. I'm falling for you too. She turned in his arms, finding his mouth in the darkness. The kiss was soft, almost reverent. What are we going to do? She asked against his lips. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Together. Victoria settled back against his chest, and Lucas held her close, listening to her breathing slow and deepen as she fell asleep. He stayed awake long after, staring at the ceiling, wondering how his entire life had changed in less than 48 hours. Outside, the moon climbed higher in the sky. Inside, two people who'd thought they knew what they wanted discovered they'd been wrong all along. And somewhere between sleep and waking, in the quiet darkness of a house that had never felt more like home, Lucas made a decision. Whatever happened next, whatever complications arose, he wasn't letting Victoria go without a fight. Because some things, some people, were worth the risk. The next 2 days unfolded like a dream Lucas was afraid to wake from. They fell into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Mornings began with coffee in bed, Victoria propped against the headboard with her French novels while Lucas sketched architectural designs on a notepad. They didn't talk much in those early hours, but the silence was comfortable, filled with the occasional brush of feet under the covers or a shared smile over the rim of a coffee cup. Afternoons were spent in separate spaces, Lucas working on his housing project at the dining room table, Victoria responding to urgent emails in the living room, but they'd find excuses to drift together. A question about lunch, a comment about the weather, any reason to be in the same room, breathing the same air. Evenings were theirs completely. They cooked elaborate meals together, trying recipes neither of them had attempted before. Victoria insisted on making coq au vin from scratch, which resulted in her standing at the stove for 2 hours, cursing in French while Lucas laughed and chopped vegetables. The dish turned out perfectly, and they ate it by candlelight, trading stories about their most spectacular cooking failures. I once tried to make the soufflé for a dinner party, Victoria admitted, refilling their wine glasses. It came out looking like a deflated football. My guests were too polite to say anything, but I saw their faces. Lucas grinned. I set off the smoke alarm making grilled cheese for Emma. The fire department showed up. She still brings it up whenever I try to cook for her. To our culinary disasters, Victoria said, raising her glass. And to trying anyway. They clinked glasses, and Lucas felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just attraction anymore. It wasn't just the physical connection, though that was undeniably powerful. This was something deeper, something that terrified him because he recognized it. He was falling in love with her. The realization hit him as they cleaned up dinner, Victoria washing dishes while he dried, their hips bumping companionably. She was humming something under her breath, a melody he didn't recognize, and the domesticity of the moment made his chest ache. This was what he'd wanted with Melissa and never found. This ease, this feeling of being understood without having to explain, this sense that he could be completely himself and it would be enough. "You're staring," Victoria said without looking at him. "Sorry." "Don't be, I like it." She rinsed the last plate and handed it to him, finally meeting his eyes. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas dried the plate carefully, buying time. "How different this is from what I expected." "Different how?" "I thought you'd be colder, more distant, but you're—" He struggled for the right word. "You're warm, real. You make terrible jokes and curse in French, and you care about things so much it shows on your face, even when you're trying to hide it." Victoria's cheeks flushed. "The cold thing is an act, armor." "I know, but you don't wear it here." "I don't need to, not with you." She dried her hands and moved closer, sliding her arms around his waist. Lucas pulled her against him, resting his chin on top of her head. "What happens when your mother comes home?" Victoria asked quietly. It was the question they'd both been avoiding. Helen was due back in 3 days, and they still hadn't talked about what would happen after that. Whether this thing between them could survive outside the bubble they'd created. "We tell her the truth," Lucas said. "And if she's upset? Then we deal with it. Together." Victoria pulled back to look at him. "You keep saying that, together, like it's a given. Isn't it?" "I don't know, Lucas. I want it to be. But I keep thinking about all the ways this could fall apart." "Then stop thinking and just feel." "I'm not good at that." Lucas cupped her face in his hands. "Yes, you are. You're doing it right now." He kissed her, and Victoria melted into him with a soft sigh. They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped up in each other, the kitchen warm around them. When they broke apart, Victoria's eyes were bright. "Come upstairs with me." "I thought that was a given too." She laughed and took his hand, pulling him toward the stairs. They made it to the bedroom this time without stopping, though Lucas paused in the doorway, struck by how right Victoria looked in his space. Her things were scattered around, a book on the nightstand, her laptop on the dresser, a silk robe draped over the chair. She'd marked the room as hers without even trying. "What?" Victoria asked, noticing his hesitation. "Nothing, just... This feels right, you being here." "It does, doesn't it?" She sounded almost surprised. "I've never felt at home anywhere, not really, but here, with you." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Lucas understood. They came together slowly that night, taking their time, learning each other's bodies with a thoroughness that felt like worship. Victoria was beautiful in the lamplight, all smooth skin and soft curves. Lucas traced the line of her collarbone with his lips, feeling her shiver beneath him. "Lucas," she breathed, arching into his touch. He loved the way she said his name, like it meant something, like he meant something. They moved together with an ease that shouldn't have been possible this early, their bodies finding a rhythm that felt practiced. Victoria's hands were everywhere, in his hair, on his shoulders, tracing the muscles of his back. Lucas lost himself in the sound of her breathing, the small gasps she made when he found a particularly sensitive spot. When they finally joined, Victoria's eyes locked on his, and Lucas felt like he could see straight into her soul. All the walls were down, all the armor stripped away. This was Victoria at her most vulnerable, most real, and the trust implicit in that vulnerability made his heart clench. "Don't look away," she whispered. "I won't." They stayed like that, eyes open, watching each other as they moved together. It was intimate in a way that went beyond physical. Lucas felt exposed, seen, but instead of being frightening, it felt like freedom. Victoria came apart in his arms with a cry that she muffled against his shoulder, her whole body trembling. Lucas followed moments later, burying his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of her. After, they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin. Victoria traced lazy patterns on Lucas's chest, her touch feather light. "I could get used to this," she murmured. "So could I." "That's what scares me." Lucas caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "Why does it scare you?" "Because when something becomes necessary, losing it destroys you. I've built my whole life on not needing anyone. And now," her voice broke, "now I need you, and I don't know how to handle that. You don't have to handle it alone." "Don't I? When I leave here, when I go back to New York, to Tokyo, to all the places my work takes me, you won't be there, and I'll have to figure out how to function without this." "Without you?" Lucas propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. "What if you didn't have to?" "Lucas, hear me out. What if we made this work, really work, not just stolen moments when you can get away, but an actual relationship?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "How? Your life is here. Your daughter is here. You can't just uproot everything." "I'm not suggesting I uproot everything. I'm suggesting we find a middle ground. You come here when you can. I visit you when Emma's with Melissa. We video call. We make it work because we want it to work." "Long-distance relationships fail, Lucas. The statistics are terrible." "Screw the statistics. I'm not interested in being a statistic. I'm interested in you." A tear slipped down Victoria's cheek. Lucas wiped it away with his thumb. "You make it sound so simple," she whispered. "It is simple. We want to be together, so we figure out how. Everything else is just logistics." "Logistics are my entire life." "Then you should be great at this." Victoria laughed through her tears and pulled him down for a kiss. It was salty and sweet and desperate, and Lucas poured everything he felt into it. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay, let's try. Let's see if we can make this work." Relief flooded through Lucas so intensely it made him dizzy. "Yeah? Yeah. But we do it properly. We tell your mother together. We don't hide. And if it gets too hard, if it starts damaging either of us or affecting Emma, then we reevaluate. But we don't give up without trying." Victoria nodded, and Lucas kissed her again, softer this time. A promise. A beginning. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in days, Lucas didn't worry about the morning. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The next day dawned gray and cold, with rain pattering against the windows. Lucas woke to find Victoria already up, standing at the window in his t-shirt, watching the storm. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. She turned, and the smile that lit her face made his heart stutter. "Morning, I made coffee." "You're perfect." "I'm caffeinated. There's a difference." Lucas got up and joined her at the window, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, and they watched the rain together in comfortable silence. "I have a conference call at 10, Victoria said eventually. "It's unavoidable. The board needs an update on the Tokyo expansion." "That's fine. I need to submit my blueprints today anyway." "Look at us. Being responsible adults." "Shocking, I know." Victoria turned in his arms, looping her hands behind his neck. "After the call, want to do something? I don't know what people do on rainy days in small towns. We could go to the movies or the bookstore, or we could stay here and do absolutely nothing." Nothing sounds perfect. They kissed, slow and lazy, before breaking apart to start the day. Lucas showered while Victoria set up for her conference call in the living room. He could hear her voice through the door as he dressed, confident, commanding, nothing like the soft woman who'd been in his arms minutes ago. The duality fascinated him. Victoria Hale, CEO, could run a billion-dollar company with ruthless efficiency. But Victoria, just Victoria, made terrible jokes and read French novels and hummed while doing dishes. Both versions were real. Both were her. He was falling for both of them. Lucas submitted his blueprints via email, then made breakfast while Victoria wrapped up her call. She emerged from the living room looking tired but satisfied. "How'd it go?" he asked, sliding a plate of eggs and toast across the counter. "Better than expected. The Tokyo deal is moving forward. We should close by month's end." "That's good?" "That's very good. It's been in the works for 2 years." Lucas studied her face. "But you're not excited." Victoria picked up her fork, pushing eggs around her plate. "I am. I should be. This is huge for the company. But all I can think about is that it means I'll be in Tokyo for 3 weeks starting next Monday. The words hit Lucas like a physical blow. 3 weeks. He'd known she had to leave eventually, but he'd convinced himself they had more time. 3 weeks isn't that long, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Yes, it is. It's an eternity when all I want is to stay here with you. Then stay. Lucas, I know you can't, but I can want it anyway. Victoria set down her fork and came around the counter, cupping his face in her hands. I'll come back. As soon as the deal closes, I'll come straight back here. Promise? Promise. They kissed, and Lucas tried not to think about how many things could change in 3 weeks. How many reasons Victoria might find to stay in Tokyo, or New York, or anywhere but here. How easy it would be for this bubble they'd created to burst the moment reality intruded. As if reading his thoughts, Victoria pulled back and looked him in the eye. I mean it, Lucas. This isn't just a vacation fling for me. I'm in this. For real. I know, I'm sorry. I'm just scared. Me too. You? Scared? Terrified. I've never felt this way about anyone. I don't know the rules. Don't know how to protect myself. Don't know if I even want to. Lucas rested his forehead against hers. We'll figure it out. Together? Always together. They finished breakfast in quiet contemplation, each lost in their own thoughts. Lucas kept stealing glances at Victoria, memorizing her face, the way the morning light caught in her hair, the small furrow between her brows when she was thinking hard about something. Stop cataloging me, she said without looking up. Can't help it. Why not? Because you're leaving soon, and I want to remember everything. Victoria's eyes went soft. I'm not dying, Lucas. I'm going to Tokyo. I know, but it feels the same right now. She reached across the table and took his hand. It won't always feel this hard. Once we settle into a routine, once we know what to expect, it'll get easier? Maybe. Or maybe we'll just get better at handling the difficult parts. Lucas squeezed her hand. I'll take it. They spent the rest of the morning curled up on the couch, Victoria reading while Lucas sketched. The rain continued, creating a cocoon of sound around them. It felt peaceful, safe, like the whole world had narrowed to just this room, this moment, these two people. Around noon, Lucas's phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Hey, Princess, he answered. Daddy! Emma's voice was bright with excitement. Guess what? What? Mommy said I can come visit this weekend after all. Her plans got canceled, and she said you could have me from Friday to Sunday. Lucas's heart soared. That's amazing, sweetheart. I can't wait. Me neither. Can we make pancakes and go to the park and watch movies? We can do all of those things, whatever you want. Yay, okay, I have to go. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Emma. He hung up and found Victoria watching him with an unreadable expression. Emma's coming this weekend, he said. I heard. That's wonderful. There was something in her tone that made Lucas pause. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm happy for you, really. She set her book aside. I should probably go, though. Back to New York. Give you space to prepare. Victoria, it's fine, Lucas. It makes sense. You need time with your daughter, and I need to get ready for Tokyo anyway. You're running. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? You're using Emma as an excuse to run, because this is getting too real and you're scared. Victoria stood, arms crossed defensively. That's not fair. Isn't it? Lucas stood too. Every time we get close, every time things start feeling permanent, you find a reason to pull back. The Tokyo trip, your work. Now Emma. There's always something. Because there always will be something, Lucas. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Our lives are complicated. We can't just pretend otherwise. I'm not pretending. I'm trying to build something real. But I can't do it alone. You think I'm not trying? Victoria's voice rose. You think this is easy for me? I'm completely out of my depth here. I don't know how to be in a relationship. I don't know how to balance what I want with what I need to do. I'm making this up as I go and hoping I don't mess it up completely. Then mess it up. Make mistakes. Be human. But don't run away the first time it gets hard. I'm not running away. Then what are you doing? I'm trying to protect us. Both of us. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. If I stay this weekend, Emma will meet me.
she'll get attached. And when I leave for Tokyo, when I'm gone for weeks at a time, she'll wonder why. Your ex-wife will have questions. Your mother will find out before we're ready to tell her. Everything will get complicated and messy, and it'll be my fault for not thinking ahead." Lucas's anger deflated. He crossed the room and pulled Victoria into his arms, even as she tried to resist. "Listen to me," he said quietly.
"Emma meeting you isn't a problem. It's a natural progression. And yes, it might be complicated. Yes, there will be questions, but we'll handle them together. Like we said we would." "What if she doesn't like me?" "She'll love you." "You can't know that." "Yes, I can, because I know my daughter and I know you, and I know that you're kind and smart and funny. Emma will see that too." Victoria sagged against him, her fight gone. "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I, but we'll figure it out." "You keep saying that." "Because I keep believing it." Victoria pulled back to look at him, her face blotchy with tears. "I'm a mess." "You're my mess, like..." She laughed, watery and broken. "That was terrible." "Yeah, but you're smiling." She was. Despite everything, she was smiling. Lucas wiped the tears from her cheeks and kissed her forehead. "Stay this weekend," he said. "Meet Emma. Let this be real. And if it goes badly, then we'll deal with it. But I don't think it will." Victoria took a shaky breath. "Okay, I'll stay." "Yeah?" "Yeah. But if your daughter hates me, I'm blaming you." "Deal." They spent the afternoon planning, talking through logistics and schedules. Emma would arrive Friday evening and stay through Sunday afternoon. Victoria would need to be somewhat scarce while Lucas and Emma had their father-daughter time, but they'd find moments to introduce her gradually. "Maybe we could all make dinner together Saturday night," Victoria suggested. "I make a mean lasagna. Emma loves lasagna." Then it's settled. As evening approached, they made dinner together, a simple pasta dish that had become their default. The earlier tension had dissipated, replaced by a cautious optimism. Lucas could see Victoria really trying to believe this could work. After dinner, they curled up on the couch to watch a movie, but neither of them paid much attention to the screen. Lucas's mind was racing, thinking about Emma meeting Victoria, about his mother coming home, about all the conversations they'd need to have. "Stop overthinking," Victoria murmured, pressing a kiss to his jaw. "How do you know I'm overthinking?" "Because I know you. And because I'm doing it too." Lucas pulled her closer. "What are you thinking about?" "How much I don't want to leave. How scary that is. How I've spent my entire adult life convinced I didn't need this kind of connection, and now I can't imagine going back to how things were before." "You don't have to go back." "Don't I? In a week, I'll be in Tokyo closing a deal. In a month, I'll be in London for a shareholders meeting. In 3 months... She stopped. "I don't even know where I'll be in 3 months. That's my life, Lucas. Constant movement. Never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots." "Then maybe it's time to plant some." Victoria twisted to look at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you could keep some things here. Clothes, books, whatever you need. Make this a place you come back to. Not just my mother's friend visiting, but your space. Our space." "You want me to move in?" "Not exactly. Not yet. But I want you to know you always have a place here. With me." Tears welled in Victoria's eyes again. "You're going to make me cry again." "Is that a yes?" "It's a, let's see how this weekend goes first." "I'll take it." They kissed, and Lucas felt the rightness of it settle into his bones. This was where he was supposed to be. With this woman. Building something real. The movie ended, forgotten, and they headed upstairs. In the bedroom, Victoria paused, looking around at the space they'd shared for days now. "I'm going to miss this," she said quietly. "Falling asleep next to you. Waking up together. It's not over yet. We still have a few more days." "I know, but it feels like it's slipping away already." Lucas came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Then let's make the most of the time we have." Victoria turned in his arms, and the look in her eyes made Lucas's breath catch. There was want there, yes, but also something deeper. Something that looked like love. They came together with an urgency that bordered on desperate, like they were trying to memorize each other through touch. Victoria's hands were everywhere, claiming him, marking him as hers. Lucas responded in kind, pouring everything he felt into every kiss, every caress. When they finally came together, it felt different than before. More intense.
more meaningful. Like they were sealing a promise neither of them had spoken aloud.
Afterward, they lay in the darkness, skin pressed to skin, hearts beating in sync.
Lucas?
Victoria's voice was small in the quiet. Yeah?
I think I'm falling in love with you.
Lucas's heart stopped, then started again, faster. You think?
I know. I know I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me.
He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. I'm already there. Have been for days, maybe longer. Victoria made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob.
We're idiots. Probably. This is going to be so complicated. Definitely. But you're still in. Completely, irrevocably, stupidly in love with you. Victoria kissed him, and Lucas tasted salt on her lips. Happy tears this time. Hopeful tears. They made love again, slower, sweeter, sealing the words they'd finally said. And when they fell asleep hours later, wrapped around each other, Lucas felt a peace he'd never known before.
Whatever complications lay ahead, whatever obstacles they'd face, they'd do it together. Because love, real love, was worth fighting for. The rain continued through the night, a steady rhythm that lulled them into dreams. Outside, the world kept turning, but inside, in the quiet sanctuary of that bedroom, two people who'd been lost had finally found their way home. In each other.
Friday arrived with painful clarity. Lucas woke alone in bed, the space beside him still warm but empty. He could hear Victoria downstairs, moving quietly through the kitchen, probably making coffee. The normalcy of it, the domesticity, made his chest ache. Emma would arrive in 6 hours. He found Victoria standing at the kitchen window, cradling a mug, watching the morning sun paint the backyard gold.
She'd pulled on one of his old college sweatshirts, and it hung past her hips, making her look younger, more vulnerable. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She turned, and he saw the shadows under her eyes. Too much thinking. About today? About everything. She set down her mug and moved into his arms. Lucas held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, vanilla and something uniquely Victoria.
It's going to be fine, he murmured. You keep saying that. Because I keep believing it.
Victoria pulled back to look at him, and there was something in her expression that made his stomach twist.
What if it's not enough? Believing.
What do you mean?
I mean, she stopped, searching for words. I've been thinking all night about us, about what we're trying to build, and I keep coming back to the same question, which is, what are we doing, Lucas? Really doing? The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been.
Lucas felt something cold settle in his gut. We're trying to make this work, he said carefully.
Are we? Or are we just... Victoria gestured helplessly.
Pretending, playing house while we can because it feels good?
That's not what this is. Isn't it? Her voice cracked. Look at us. I'm wearing your clothes, making coffee in your kitchen, about to meet your daughter like I'm someone permanent in your life. But I'm not, am I? I'm temporary. A woman passing through.
And in a few days, I'll be gone, and this will all be, what, a nice memory? Lucas felt anger flash through him, hot and sharp.
Is that what you think this is to me? A nice memory? I don't know what to think anymore. I told you I loved you last night, and this morning I woke up terrified because I realized I don't know what that means. For us, for me, for anything. It means we fight for this. We make it work. How? The word came out almost as a shout. How do we make it work, Lucas? You keep saying that, but you never explain how. I leave Monday for 3 weeks, maybe longer if the Tokyo deal gets complicated. What happens to us during that time? We video call, send each other cute messages, pretend that's enough? If that's what it takes, then yes. It won't be enough. Not for me. Not when I've had this. She gestured around the kitchen. Not when I know what it's like to wake up next to you, to fall asleep in your arms, to feel like I belong somewhere. Lucas took a step toward her, but Victoria held up a hand. Don't. Please. I need to say this. He stopped, fear coiling in his chest. I've built my entire life on not needing anyone, Victoria continued, her voice shaking, on being self-sufficient, independent, and in less than a week you've completely dismantled that. I need you now, Lucas. I need this.
And that terrifies me because I know it can't last. Why can't it? Because look at our lives. You're a single father with a daughter who needs stability. I'm a CEO who lives out of suitcases and conference rooms. You have roots here, deep ones. And I have, what? Hotel rooms and first-class tickets? How do those two things coexist? We make them coexist. We compromise. We adapt. But someone always loses in a compromise. Either you uproot your life for me, or I give up everything I've built for you. And I don't think either of us is ready to do that. The truth of her words cut deep. Lucas wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but part of him knew she wasn't. They were standing at a crossroads neither of them had fully acknowledged until now. So what are you saying? He asked quietly. That we give up? Just quit before we even try? I'm saying maybe we need to be realistic about what this is. What it can be. And what is it, Victoria? According to you? She looked at him, and the pain in her eyes nearly broke him. It's everything I've ever wanted and nothing I can keep. The words landed like physical blows. Lucas felt something crack inside him, something he'd been protecting without realizing it. I don't accept that, he said. Lucas? No, I don't accept that we have to choose between love and our lives. People make relationships work across distances all the time. It's hard, but it's possible. Those are normal people with normal lives. I'm not normal, Lucas. My life is insane. The pressure, the expectations, the constant scrutiny. And you deserve better than stolen moments between board meetings. Don't tell me what I deserve. I get to decide that. And I choose you. All of you. The CEO and the woman who makes terrible jokes. The brilliant businesswoman and the person who reads French novels in bed. I choose all of it. Tears spilled down Victoria's cheeks. What if I can't choose you back? Not the way you deserve. Then tell me that. Tell me you don't love me enough to try, but don't hide behind logistics and fear. I do love you. That's the problem. I love you so much it's making me rethink everything I thought I wanted from life. And that scares me more than anything. Lucas closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. Love isn't supposed to be safe, Victoria. It's supposed to be terrifying and wonderful and worth the risk. But what if we fail? What if we try and it falls apart anyway? Then at least we'll know we tried. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering what if. Victoria closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. You're the strongest person I know. No, I'm good at pretending to be strong. But inside, I'm just... Her voice broke. I'm just scared of losing you. Then don't let me go. She opened her eyes, and Lucas saw the moment something shifted. The fear was still there, but so was determination. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay, we try. Really try. No more holding back. No more letting fear make our decisions for us. Relief flooded through Lucas so intensely it made him dizzy. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. We'll figure it out, he said against her hair. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. We'll figure it out because the alternative is unacceptable. They stood there, wrapped around each other in the morning light, and Lucas felt something settle between them. An understanding, a commitment. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The sound of a car in the driveway made them both jump. That can't be Emma already, Lucas said, checking his phone. She's not due until 4. Victoria moved to the window, and her face went pale. Lucas, it's your mother. Lucas's heart stopped. He joined her at the window and saw his mother's car parked in the driveway, Helen Bennett climbing out with her overnight bag. She's early, he said stupidly. What do? We tell her, like we planned. Now? We're not ready. We haven't... Victoria. Lucas took her hand. We tell her now, together. Helen was already at the front door, key in hand. Lucas and Victoria barely had time to step apart before she walked in, calling out cheerfully. Lucas, I'm home early. The birthday party got canceled because Sarah came down with the flu, so She stopped short, seeing them both in the kitchen. Her gaze moved from Lucas to Victoria, taking in the oversized sweatshirt Victoria wore, the intimate way they'd been standing, the obvious tension in the air. Her expression shifted from surprise to confusion to something Lucas couldn't quite read. "Victoria," she said carefully, "I wasn't expecting you to still be here." "Helen, we need to talk." Victoria's voice was steady, but Lucas could see her hands trembling. "I think we do." Helen set down her bag, her eyes moving between them. "What's going on?" Lucas stepped forward, taking Victoria's hand in his. The gesture was deliberate, unmistakable. "Mom, Victoria and I, He struggled for words. "Something happened between us while you were gone." Helen's eyes widened. She looked at their joined hands, then at their faces. "Something happened. What does that mean?" "It means we're together," Victoria said quietly. "I know this is unexpected. I know it's complicated. But Lucas and I, we've developed feelings for each other." The silence that followed was deafening. Helen stood frozen, processing. Lucas watched emotions flash across her face: shock, confusion, hurt, anger, all cycling too fast to track. "How long?" Helen asked finally. "Since Sunday night," Lucas said. "Sunday. You came home Sunday, and by Sunday night you were—" She stopped, shaking her head. "This is a joke. This has to be a joke." "It's not, Mom. Victoria, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't with my son." Helen's voice cracked. "Tell me you didn't betray me like this." "Helen, please," Victoria started. Don't, Helen, please me. You're my best friend. Have been for 15 years. I trusted you. I brought you into my home, into my family." "And this is how you repay that trust? By seducing my son the moment my back is turned?" "It wasn't like that," Lucas said sharply. "Nobody seduced anyone. We're both adults. This just happened." "Things don't just happen, Lucas. People make choices. And you both chose to—" Helen pressed a hand to her chest, breathing hard. "I can't believe this. I can't believe either of you would do this to me." "We didn't do anything to you," Victoria said, her voice stronger now. "This isn't about you, Helen. This is about Lucas and me." "Not about me? You're my best friend and he's my son. How is this not about me?" "Because not everything is about you." The words came out sharper than Victoria intended, and she immediately looked stricken. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did, and maybe you're right. Maybe I'm being selfish for not wanting the two most important people in my life to— Helen couldn't finish the sentence. She sank into a chair, looking suddenly older. "I need to think. I can't. I need time to process this." Lucas moved toward her, but Helen held up a hand. "Don't. I need space. From both of you. Mom. Please, Lucas. Just give me space." She grabbed her bag and headed upstairs, and moments later they heard her bedroom door close. Not slam. Close. Which somehow felt worse. Lucas turned to Victoria, who looked devastated. "That went well," she said hollowly. "She just needs time. She'll come around." "Will she? Did you see her face? She looked at me like I'd stabbed her in the back. She's hurt, surprised, but she loves us both. Once she has time to process—" "Lucas, stop. Stop trying to fix this with optimism." Victoria pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. "Your mother just found out her best friend and her son are sleeping together. That's not something you process and get over in an afternoon. So what do we do?" "I don't know. Maybe she's right. Maybe this was a mistake." "Don't say that." "Why not? Look at what we've done. We've hurt someone we both love. We've made everything complicated and messy. And for what? A week of playing house?" "That's not what this is, and you know it." "Do I?" Victoria's voice rose. "Because right now it feels exactly like what your mother said. A betrayal. A selfish choice that hurt someone who didn't deserve it. We have a right to be happy, Victoria. At what cost? Your mother's trust? Your relationship with her? Is that worth it?" Lucas felt anger rising again. "Are you worth it? That's what you're really asking. And the answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. You say that now. But what about tomorrow, next week? When your mother won't speak to you because of me? When Emma asks why Grandma doesn't come around anymore? Will I still be worth it then?" "Yes." "You can't know that." "I can. Because I love you. And love means choosing someone even when it's hard. Victoria shook her head, tears streaming down her face. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Love isn't supposed to hurt people. It does sometimes. That's the risk we take. I don't know if I can live with that risk, with being the person who came between you and your mother. You're not. I am. We are. And maybe, she took a shuddering breath, maybe we need to be realistic about what we can actually have. Lucas felt cold spread through his chest. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe your mother's right. Maybe this happened too fast. Maybe we got caught up in something that felt good without thinking about the consequences. That's not true. We talked about this. We made a choice. A choice that hurt someone we both love. A choice that's causing damage we didn't anticipate. Victoria wiped her eyes. I think I need to go. Go where? New York. Back to my life. Back to where I make sense. You make sense here, with me. Do I? Because right now I feel like I'm destroying your family. You're not destroying anything. This is just, it's an adjustment. Mom will come around. You don't know that. And I can't stay here while she's upstairs hating me, hating us. Lucas grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Don't do this. Don't run because it got hard. You said you wouldn't. You promised. I promised I'd try, but I didn't promise I'd sacrifice your relationship with your mother for my own happiness. That's not what this is, isn't it? Victoria pulled away from him. I need to pack. I need to think. I need space. Victoria, please, don't. Don't make this harder than it already is. She headed for the stairs, and Lucas watched her go, feeling helpless. Everything was falling apart. The morning had started with hope and ended with his mother upstairs refusing to speak to them and Victoria packing to leave. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. This couldn't be happening. They'd finally admitted they loved each other, finally committed to trying, and now it was all crumbling because they'd hurt someone neither of them wanted to hurt. Footsteps on the stairs made him look up. His mother appeared, looking tired and sad. Is she leaving? Helen asked quietly. I think so. His mother sat across from him. They didn't speak for a long moment. I'm sorry, Lucas said finally. I'm sorry we hurt you. I'm sorry we didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry for all of it. Helen sighed. I'm sorry, too, for how I reacted. It was a shock, seeing you two together like that. I know. Help me understand, Lucas. How did this happen? Lucas told her everything, coming home early, finding Victoria in his bed. The dinner, the conversation, the way they'd connected in ways he hadn't expected. He left out the intimate details, but he was honest about the feelings, about how quickly and completely he'd fallen for her. Helen listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Do you really love her? She asked. Yes. And she loves you? She says she does, but I think she's scared of what that means. She should be. You both should be. Helen looked at him. Lucas, I'm not upset because you're together. I'm upset because neither of you thought to consider what this would mean for our family. For me. For Emma. For everyone involved. We did consider it. We talked about it. Did you? Really? Or did you just tell yourselves it would be fine because you wanted it to be fine? Lucas had no answer for that. Victoria is my best friend, Helen continued. She's been there for me through everything. Devore, your father leaving, all of it. And you're my son. I love you both. But this changes everything. Can't you see that? It doesn't have to change everything. Of course it does. If you two are together, I can't just be her friend anymore. I'm your mother. If things go wrong between you, I'll be caught in the middle. And if things go right, she paused. If things go right, I have to watch my best friend become my daughter-in-law. Do you understand how strange that is? I'm sorry it's strange. But I can't not love her because it's complicated. Helen's expression softened. I know, and I'm not asking you to. I need time to adjust, to figure out what this means for all of us. Does that mean you're okay with it, eventually? I don't know what I am yet, but I know I love you both, and I want you both to be happy, even if it's with each other. She reached across and took his hand. Just give me time. Okay, whatever you need. They sat in silence, and Lucas felt a small measure of hope return. His mother wasn't thrilled, but she wasn't shutting them out completely either. That was something. Victoria appeared in the doorway, fully dressed now, her bag packed. She looked between Lucas and Helen uncertainly. "I called a car," she said quietly. "It'll be here in 10 minutes. "You don't have to go," Helen said. Victoria's eyes widened. "Helen? I mean it. I'm not throwing you out. I'm just processing. But you don't need to leave." "I think I do. For both our sakes. I need space to think. And you need space without me here complicating things." "What about Lucas?" Victoria's gaze moved to him, and Lucas saw everything she felt written on her face. Love, fear, regret, determination. "Lucas deserves someone who can put him first," she said. "Someone who doesn't come with complications and baggage and a life that pulls them in 100 different directions. I'm not that person." "That's not true," Lucas said, standing. "It is true. We both know it is. I got caught up in the fantasy of this, of us. But reality is back now, and reality is telling me that some things aren't meant to be. Don't do this, Victoria. Don't give up on us." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." She looked at Helen. "I'm sorry for all of this, for putting you in this position, for betraying your trust." "You didn't betray me," Helen said softly. "You fell in love. That's not a crime." "Feels like it right now." A car horn sounded outside, Victoria's ride. "I should go," she said. Lucas walked her to the door, his heart breaking with every step. On the porch, she turned to face him. "This isn't how I wanted this to end," she said. "Then don't let it end. Stay. Fight for this." "I can't. Not right now. Not when everything is such a mess." "When then? When will you be ready?" "I don't know. Maybe never." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I'm so sorry." She kissed him one last time, soft, heartbreaking, final. And then she was walking away, climbing into the car, driving out of his life as quickly as she'd entered it. Lucas stood on the porch, watching until the car disappeared. Then he went back inside, closed the door, and let himself feel the full weight of what he'd lost. His mother found him sitting on the stairs, head in his hands. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, sitting beside him. "I love her, Mom. I really love her. I know you do." "What do I do?" Helen put her arm around his shoulders. "You give her space, you let her think, and you hope she realizes what she's walking away from. And if she doesn't, then you move on, as hard as that is." Lucas leaned against his mother, feeling like a child again, lost, hurt, uncertain. "I don't want to move on. I know, but sometimes we don't get what we want." They sat there as the morning light shifted, as the house settled back into its usual quiet. Emma would be here in a few hours, and Lucas would have to pull himself together, put on a smile, be the father she needed. But right now, in this moment, he let himself grieve for what he'd had, for what he'd lost, for what might have been if they'd been braver, stronger, more willing to fight for what they'd found. Upstairs, in the bedroom that still smelled like vanilla and possibility, a silk scarf lay forgotten on the dresser. Evidence of a week that had changed everything, and nothing, because Victoria was gone. And Lucas was left with memories and the hollow ache of loving someone who couldn't love him back enough to stay. Emma arrived at 4 o'clock exactly, bursting through the door with her usual energy, oblivious to the wreckage of the morning. Lucas caught her up in his arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, letting her chatter wash over him like a balm. "Daddy, Daddy, I made you a picture at school. It's a dragon." "Well, Miss Patterson says it looks more like a dinosaur, but I say it's a dragon because dragons are cooler." And she stopped, pulling back to look at his face. "Why do you look sad?" Lucas forced a smile. "I'm not sad, Princess. I'm happy you're here. But your eyes are sad." Emma touched his cheek with her small hand. "Did something bad happen?" "Nothing you need to worry about." He set her down gently. "Come on, Grandma's here. She came home early." Emma squealed and ran toward the kitchen where Helen was preparing snacks. Lucas followed more slowly, feeling the weight of the day settle over his shoulders like a heavy coat. The weekend passed in a blur of forced normalcy. Lucas made pancakes Saturday morning, took Emma to the park, watched movies with her curled against his side. But his mind kept drifting to Victoria, wondering where she was, what she was thinking, whether she regretted leaving. His phone stayed silent. Sunday afternoon, Melissa arrived to pick Emma up. She took one look at Lucas and her expression shifted from polite distance to something almost like concern. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. "Thanks." "I mean it, Lucas. What's going on?" "Nothing. Just tired." Melissa studied him for a moment, then glanced at Emma, who was gathering her things in the other room. "Is it a woman?" Lucas's head snapped up. "What?" "You have that look. The one you had after we split and you were trying to convince yourself you were fine when you weren't." She paused. "Did something happen?" "It's none of your business, Mel." "You're right, it's not. But Emma is my business, and if whatever's going on with you is going to affect her, it won't, I promise." Melissa looked like she wanted to press further, but Emma returned, backpack slung over her shoulder, and the moment passed. "Bye, Daddy." Emma hugged him tight. "I love you." "Love you too, Princess. So much." He watched them drive away, then went back inside to the too-quiet house. His mother was in the living room, reading. "You should call her," Helen said, without looking up. "Who?" "Don't be dense, Lucas. Victoria. You should call her." "She doesn't want to hear from me." "How do you know?" "Have you tried?" Lucas sank onto the couch. "She left, Mom. She made her choice. She left because she was scared, because I showed up and made her feel like she'd done something wrong." Helen set down her book. "I've been thinking about what I said, how I reacted, and I was wrong." "You were hurt. You had a right to be." "Maybe, but I shouldn't have made it about me, you and Victoria. What you have, that's separate from my friendship with her. I should have seen that sooner. It doesn't matter now. She's gone. It matters if you love her, and I think you do." Lucas rubbed his face. "Loving her isn't enough. She doesn't think this can work. And maybe she's right. Or maybe she's terrified and running from the best thing that's ever happened to her." Helen moved to sit beside him. "Talk to her, Lucas. Don't let it end like this. What if she says no? Then at least you'll know. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering." Lucas looked at his mother, seeing the understanding in her eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just never listened." She squeezed his hand. "Call her. Tonight. Don't wait." But Lucas didn't call that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Because every time he picked up the phone, he heard Victoria's voice in his head telling him she couldn't do this, couldn't be what he needed, couldn't sacrifice his relationship with his mother for her own happiness. And he was afraid that calling would only confirm what he already suspected, that she'd meant it when she left, that it was really over. Work became his refuge. He threw himself into the housing project, staying late at his drafting table, perfecting details that didn't need perfecting. Anything to avoid the empty house, the bed that still smelled faintly of vanilla, the silk scarf he'd found on his dresser and couldn't bring himself to throw away. His mother watched him spiral with growing concern, but said nothing. What was there to say? He was a grown man nursing a broken heart. She couldn't fix it for him. Thursday evening, Lucas was working late when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello? Lucas Bennett?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Yes?" "This is Sarah Chen, Victoria Hale's executive assistant. Ms. Hale asked me to call you." Lucas's heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's in Tokyo for business, but she wanted me to reach out." A pause. "She'd like to see you." "See me? In Tokyo?" "No. She's returning Friday evening. She'll be in New York for one night before heading to London. She asked if you could meet her there." Lucas sat down slowly. "She wants me to come to New York?" "Yes, I can arrange everything. Flight, hotel. She just needs to know if you're available." A dozen questions flooded Lucas's mind. Why now? What did Victoria want to say that couldn't be said over the phone? Was this goodbye or something else? "Mr. Bennett?" "Tell her yes. Tell her I'll be there." "Excellent. I'll email you the details within the hour." She hung up, and Lucas stared at his phone, heart racing. Victoria wanted to see him. After nearly a week of silence, she wanted to see him. He called his mother. "Go,"
Helen said immediately when he explained. I'll watch Emma if Melissa will switch weekends. What if it's just to say goodbye properly? Then you say goodbye properly. But what if it's not? What if she's ready to fight for this? I don't want to get my hopes up. Get them up anyway. Hope is what keeps us going, Lucas. The next day passed in a haze of preparation and anxiety. Melissa agreed to switch weekends without too many questions. Lucas packed, unpacked, repacked, tried to imagine what he'd say when he saw Victoria. Every scenario he constructed fell apart under scrutiny. Friday evening found him on a plane to New York, watching the sun set over the clouds, wondering what awaited him on the other side. Sarah had arranged everything perfectly. A car met him at the airport, whisking him to a boutique hotel in Manhattan. The room was elegant, expensive, and completely wasted on him. Lucas paced, checking his phone obsessively. At 8 o'clock, a text arrived. Penthouse. Take the elevator to the top. V. Lucas rode the elevator with his heart in his throat. The doors opened directly into a stunning apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, modern furniture in cream and gray, art that probably cost more than his house. And there, standing by the windows, was Victoria. She wore a simple black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked thinner than he remembered, tired, but still beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. Hi, she said softly. Hi. They stared at each other across the expanse of the room. Neither moved. Thank you for coming, Victoria said finally. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. Would you like a drink? Victoria, why am I here? She flinched at his directness. I needed to see you, to talk, properly, not over the phone. You could have called any time this week. I know, I'm sorry, I needed time to think. And? What did you think about? Victoria crossed to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of wine with shaking hands. She brought one to Lucas, and their fingers brushed as he took it. The contact sent electricity through him. I thought about how stupid I was, she said, how scared, how I let fear make my decisions instead of courage. Victoria, let me finish, please. She took a sip of wine. When your mother showed up, I panicked. All I could see was the hurt on her face, the complications we'd created, the impossibility of making it work. So I ran, like I always do when things get hard. You don't always run. Yes, I do. I've been running my whole life, from feelings, from connection, from anything that might make me vulnerable. She set down her glass. But here's the thing I realized in Tokyo. I've been so busy running that I forgot what I was running toward. And the answer is nothing. I've been running in circles telling myself I was moving forward when really I was just alone. Lucas's throat tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying I was wrong. About everything. About us being impossible. About not being able to make it work. About having to choose between you and my life. She moved closer. I don't want to choose. I want both. I want you and my work and the messy, complicated life that comes with trying to balance them. That's what I wanted too. I know, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared to believe I deserved it. Tears filled her eyes. My whole life I've thought I had to earn love. Had to be successful enough, strong enough, perfect enough to be worth loving. And then you just loved me anyway, without conditions, without expectations. Just loved me. And I didn't know what to do with that. You left. I left, and I've regretted it every day since. She closed the distance between them, taking his hands in hers. Lucas, I'm in love with you. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I don't want to run anymore. Lucas felt something crack open in his chest. All the hurt, all the fear, all the loneliness of the past week came rushing out. You broke my heart, he said roughly. I know. I'm so sorry. I didn't know if you were coming back, if I'd ever see you again. I'm here now. I'm here and I'm asking, begging for another chance. To do what? Try long distance? Hope it works out? No, to build something real. I talked to my board. I'm restructuring, delegating more. I can work remotely most of the time, come to New York for critical meetings. It won't be perfect, but I can be with you more. In the house? In your life? In Emma's life, if you'll let me. Lucas stared at her.
You'd do that? Change your whole life? It's not changing my whole life. It's making room in my life for what matters. For you. For us. She squeezed his hands. I don't need to be in an office 60 hours a week to run my company. I just convinced myself I did because it was easier than being vulnerable. But I don't want easy anymore. I want you. Victoria, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you, but if you can forgive me, if you're willing to try again, I promise I won't run. I promise I'll fight for this. For us. Lucas looked at her, really looked at her, saw the fear in her eyes, the hope, the love, saw the woman he'd fallen for standing in front of him, offering everything she'd been too scared to offer before. Your mother called me, Victoria said quietly. 3 days ago. We talked for 2 hours. She did? She told me I was an idiot for leaving, that you loved me, that she could see how happy we made each other, and she was sorry for reacting the way she did. A small smile touched Victoria's lips. She also told me that if I broke your heart again, she'd never forgive me. That sounds like Mom. She gave us her blessing, Lucas. She wants us to be happy. Together. Lucas felt tears sting his eyes. I can't go through this again. Can't watch you leave. Then don't. Come here. Victoria pulled him close and Lucas let himself be held. I'm not leaving. Not really. I'll travel for work sometimes, yes, but I'll always come back. To you. To our home. Our home? If you'll have me. If you're willing to let me try to be part of your life, your family. Lucas pulled back to look at her. What about Emma? Have you thought about what it means to be with someone who has a child? I've thought about nothing else. I'm terrified, honestly. I don't know how to be a stepmother. Don't know if I'll be any good at it, but I want to try. I want to know her, to be there for both of you. She's going to ask questions. I know. Melissa's going to have opinions. I know that too. It's going to be complicated and messy and hard. I know. Victoria cupped his face in her hands. But I also know that I love you, and that some things are worth fighting for. Worth the complications, and the mess, and the hard parts. You're worth all of that to me, Lucas. You and Emma both. Lucas closed his eyes, feeling the last of his resistance crumble. This was what he wanted. What he'd wanted from the moment he'd found Victoria in his bed. Not perfection. Not easy. Just real. Honest. Worth fighting for. I love you, he said, opening his eyes. Even when you're scared. Even when you run. I love you. Does that mean, it means yes. Yes to trying again. Yes to making this work. Yes to all of it. Victoria's face transformed with joy. She kissed him, and Lucas tasted salt. Whether from her tears or his own, he couldn't tell. They stood there, wrapped around each other, and Lucas felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt like peace. Like home. When they finally broke apart, both smiling through tears, Victoria took his hand. Stay with me tonight, she said. Tomorrow I have to fly to London, but tonight I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up the same way. Just tonight? Just tonight. Then we figure out the rest. Together. They moved to the bedroom, and Lucas was struck by how different this felt from their week at his house. This wasn't escape or fantasy. This was choice. Commitment. Two people deciding that what they had was worth the work it would take to keep it. They made love slowly, carefully, like they were learning each other all over again. Victoria trembled beneath him, and Lucas held her close, whispering promises against her skin. After, they lay tangled together in the darkness, listening to the city hum outside. Tell me about Tokyo, Lucas said. Victoria laughed. It was boring, endless meetings. I kept thinking about you. About me? About how you'd hate the formality, the protocol. You'd probably suggest everyone sit on the floor and have a real conversation instead of a board presentation. That does sound more productive. It does, doesn't it? She traced patterns on his chest. I'm going to be different. When I go back to work, more present, more human, less Ice Queen CEO. Your shareholders will riot. Let them. I'm tired of pretending to be something I'm not just to fit an image. Lucas pressed a kiss to her temple. I'm proud of you. For what? For being brave, for coming back, for choosing this.
I'm proud of you too, for not giving up on me even when I gave you every reason to. They fell silent, and Lucas felt himself drifting towards sleep. But there was something he needed to say first. Victoria? Hmm? When you come back from London, don't go to a hotel. Come to the house. Come home. She went still. Lucas, I mean it. Your things are still there. The guest room is yours. Or, he paused. The master bedroom is ours, if you want it to be. You're asking me to move in? I'm asking you to have a home. With me. With us. Not full time. Not yet. But a place that's yours. Where you belong. Victoria's voice was thick when she spoke. Yes. Yes, I want that. Yeah? Yeah. They held each other as sleep claimed them, and Lucas felt complete in a way he hadn't since she'd left. This was what he'd been missing.
Not just her physical presence, but the certainty that she was his and he was hers. Morning came too soon. Victoria had an early flight and Lucas had to get back to Emma. They dressed slowly, stealing kisses, prolonging the inevitable goodbye. At the door, Victoria turned to him one last time. 2 weeks, she said. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Can you wait that long? I've waited my whole life for you. 2 weeks is nothing. She smiled and kissed him. I love you, Lucas Bennett. I love you too. He watched her leave, but this time it felt different. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. True to her word, Victoria returned 2 weeks later. Lucas picked her up from the airport, and when she walked through arrivals, her face lit up in a way that made every moment of waiting worth it. Hi, she said, dropping her bag to hug him. Hi, welcome home. Home. I like the sound of that. They drove back to the house, talking easily, filling in the gaps of 2 weeks apart. Victoria told him about London, about the breakthrough she'd had restructuring her schedule. Lucas told her about Emma, about the project, about how his mother had been asking when Victoria would visit. She wants to have dinner, Lucas said. The three of us. Tomorrow night. I'd like that. Emma was at Melissa's for the weekend, which gave them time to settle back into each other. Victoria unpacked some of her things, clothes, books, toiletries, and Lucas showed her where everything went. It felt domestic and right. That evening, they cooked dinner together, falling back into their rhythm like they'd never been apart. Afterward, they sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Victoria tucked against Lucas's side. I talked to Emma, Lucas said quietly. Victoria stiffened. You did? I told her I met someone special, that she'd get to meet you soon. She had questions. What kind of questions? The normal kind. What you look like, what you do, whether you like princesses. What did you tell her? That you're beautiful and brilliant and you run a big company, and that I wasn't sure about the princess thing, but we could find out together. Victoria laughed. I'll have you know I'm very pro-princess. Good, because Emma's going to test that theory extensively. They sat in comfortable silence, and Lucas felt Victoria's hand find his. I'm nervous, she admitted. About meeting her. What if she doesn't like me? She'll love you, just like I do. You're biased. Completely. But I'm also right. The weekend passed in a blur of quiet happiness. Dinner with Helen went better than Lucas had dared hope. His mother hugged Victoria and told her she was glad she'd come back, and the three of them talked late into the night about everything and nothing. Sunday afternoon, Melissa dropped Emma off early. Lucas had texted her that he wanted to introduce Emma to someone, and to his surprise, Melissa had been supportive. Just don't spring anything crazy on her, she'd said. Take it slow. Lucas opened the door with Emma in his arms. Victoria was in the kitchen, having strategically positioned herself where she could be introduced naturally. Princess, there's someone I want you to meet, Lucas said, carrying Emma inside. Victoria emerged looking nervous but smiling. She'd dressed casually, jeans and a soft sweater, looking approachable and warm. Emma, this is Victoria. She's very special to me. Victoria, this is my daughter, Emma. Emma studied Victoria with the serious intensity only a 6-year-old could muster. Hi, Emma, Victoria said softly. Your dad's told me so much about you. He told me about you too. He said you're a princess. Victoria blinked, then shot Lucas a look. He shrugged, grinning. Not quite a princess, Victoria said. But I do really like them. Do you? Emma nodded enthusiastically. I love princesses. Do you want to see my princess dolls? I'd love to. Lucas set Emma down, and she grabbed Victoria's hand, dragging her toward her room. Victoria looked back at Lucas, eyes wide with panic and hope, and he gave her an encouraging nod. An hour later, he found them in Emma's room, surrounded by dolls and dress-up clothes. Victoria was wearing a plastic tiara and holding a wand while Emma directed her in some elaborate game involving dragons and castles. And then Princess Victoria has to save the prince, Emma was saying. The princess saves the prince? Victoria asked. Not the other way around? Of course. Princesses are strong. They can save themselves. But sometimes they save other people too. Victoria caught Lucas's eye and smiled. You're absolutely right. Princesses are very strong. But Lucas leaned against the doorframe, watching them play, and felt his heart expand. This was his family. Not conventional, not simple, but real. And it was everything. That night, after Emma was in bed, Lucas and Victoria sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder. She liked you, Lucas said. You think so? I know so. She asked if you could come to her school play next month. Victoria sat up. Really? Really? And I told her we'd have to check your schedule, but I thought you'd probably want to. I do. I absolutely do. Victoria's eyes were bright. This is really happening, isn't it? We're really doing this. We're really doing this. I'm terrified. Me too, but I'm also happier than I've been in years. Victoria kissed him, soft and sweet. Me too. The weeks that followed set the pattern for their new life. Victoria split her time between New York and the house, working remotely when she could, traveling when necessary, but she always came back. To Lucas. To Emma. To the home they were building together. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges, scheduling conflicts, difficult conversations with Melissa, moments when the distance felt too great, but they worked through them, together. 3 months after Victoria first returned, Lucas woke to find her standing at the bedroom window, watching the sunrise. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking about? He asked. How different my life is now, how different I am. Good different? The best different. She turned in his arms. I used to think success was measured in dollars and deals, but this, she gestured around the room, to the house, to the life they'd built. This is what success actually looks like. Coming home to people who love you, being part of something bigger than yourself. Pretty profound for 6 a.m. She laughed and swatted his arm. I'm being serious. I know, and I love you for it. I love you too, so much it still scares me sometimes. Good means you're still paying attention. They stood together as the sun painted the room gold, and Lucas thought about how far they'd come. From that first shocked moment when he'd found her in his bed to this, partnership, family, love. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been simple. But it had been worth it. On Victoria's dresser, the silk scarf she'd left behind all those months ago sat folded carefully. A reminder of where they'd started, of what they'd almost lost, of what they'd chosen to fight for. Some connections weren't meant to last forever, but some were meant to transform you, to reshape who you were and who you could become. To teach you that love wasn't about perfection or ease or convenience. It was about choice, about showing up, about being brave enough to want something even when it terrified you. Lucas looked at the woman in his arms, brilliant, complicated, perfectly imperfect Victoria, and knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. They both had. Outside, the world was waking up. Emma would be awake soon, bouncing into their room with stories about her dreams and demands for pancakes. Lucas's mother would call to confirm dinner plans. Life would continue, messy and beautiful and real. But for now, in this quiet moment, Lucas held Victoria close and breathed in the scent of vanilla and home. And he was happy.